had the balls to get up and try.
Oh, man.
I couldn't do it.
Really brutal.
This feels very weird to me.
I'd rather be sitting on a couch
Holding the
talking.
mic.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to introduce it, and then we'll jump in.
Okay.
Excellent.
I'm Ryan Brown, and this is the Unvarnished podcast, and I'm lucky enough to be here today with Michael Klein and Laura Barletta at the New Salem Museum. And what's the official title of the
New Salem
school?
Museum and Academy of Fine Art.
An Academy of Fine Art. Okay.
SMA.
Great. And still under construction a little bit, right? I mean, kind of finalizing.
The inside's all done. We're ready to go. We're all set up. We're waiting for the ground to thaw so we can do a few things outside, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay. And this project started a little while ago. What I just want to say, I mean, I'll have some visuals, some pans of the museum and the academic room. It's unbelievably beautiful. I mean, really, like, so over the top beautiful.
Thank you.
The collection, the taste that you have in art just is so in line with what I love to see, and then the aesthetic that you put behind it is so beautiful. And so, yeah, I was really excited because I've seen online, I've seen you share some through Instagram, and I really wanted to see it for myself. On top of seeing some of my favorite artists and their work in person, things that I hadn't seen in person. And can you just maybe walk us through the inception of the idea, maybe your history in collecting, and how it evolved into creating a public space for your collection, and how you got involved? I'm sure that's a long story, so just go.
Well, the idea was all Michael's, actually. Do you want to tell the story, Michael?
Sure, I can. Yeah. So before Laura and I met, a really kind of beautiful and interesting story is one of the first pieces in their collection happened to be a portrait of my wife, and she can kind of expand on that in a little bit. But so that's kind of going way back. That's the original meeting, is her discovering my art in Soho. Fast forward years later, after we had met in person, having some kind of conversation online, they were looking to get their portrait done as an anniversary gift and project. And we kind of chatted about it, and she ended up wanting to commission me for the portrait. And so I went up to the Cape with my wife, and we spent a couple days up there hanging out and started the portrait. And so as we were kind of hanging out and just talking one morning, I had seen that Laura and the family had put this property up on the market on Instagram, and she had mentioned that she was sad that it had to be sold. And so just kind of casually just talking about stuff, there was no plan or expectation. I just said, you guys have a big collection, you have an empty house, have you ever thought of doing a museum? And Laura was like, I didn't know, but her vision was like, she's like, that's brilliant. And she was just like, and from there, yeah, her and her husband have taken the project.
Yeah, I talked my husband into it, and so the house was already on the market at that point, and it had been on the market for a couple of years. In fact, we had just had a Goodbye New Salem, Last Supper that I organized. My husband and I were married at the church down the street, and we had our reception here. And so I was sad about it because I had happy memories here. And then when Michael brought this idea up, I was like, oh my gosh, this could work, because we could keep it in the family. We could do some, it was a second home, and so it was used very infrequently, maybe just a couple times a year. We only got Wi-Fi out here, a year and a half ago? So having young children, they didn't want to come out here because it was, if it was a crummy day, there was no TV, and there's not a lot of attractions out here. But anyway, it sort of all worked out that we made my mother-in-law an offer on it, and she decided to sell it to us, and we bought it. And I think, her idea was that we were going to take our art and hang it in the house as it was.
Yeah.
But the house was really, it had been done in the 80s, and it just didn't feel like the art would have had a place here. It was
there wasn't a congruency.
Right,
Yeah.
right. These super sleek, beautiful, it would have detracted the way that it was done. So it started off as, we'll just paint, and then we took out closets, and then one thing led to another, and here we are,
Yeah.
2 years later.
It's so interesting because, I've run a school in Utah for a long time and had so many ideas, like, a Living Masters Museum, or we had several artists that had meetings about creating a larger academy, a group of patrons to commission works. I mean, we've gone through so many ideas that could have been amazing had we been able to pull them off, or maybe get some city involvement or some outside funding or whatever. It's just so rare that you have an idea match with somebody who catches the vision, and it actually goes forward like this. I mean, it's sort of miraculous, as far as I've seen. I mean, maybe it happens in your world all the time, but
no, it's absolutely
it's a miracle.
Unique, and it's been a joy. I mean, this has been, apart from the difficult stuff, I mean, aesthetically, we have a similar vision, and Laura's curated the whole collection. I've just kind of given some advice along the way.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, we're both very chill about certain things. So, and working with Vincent has been incredible. So one of the first things that Laura had kind of thought about, she was like, well, would you guys potentially go out there and live out there?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
I'm super introverted. My wife's not, but she loves nature.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's support of anything that has to do with kind of pushing this along, like you said, I'll do whatever I have to do to, like, jump on board.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was going to be like this.
Right.
I mean, my thought was, take art, put it in the house, and Laura and Ben definitely had a different
A much
standard
grander,
and a different vision.
Yeah. And so one of the questions I had coming in was, why New Salem? But it sounds like that was just kind of a natural extension of property that was already in the family, a place that already meant something to you.
Yeah.
How do you envision the place of the museum helping, hindering the community involvement, especially in terms of the future with the school, pulling students here? It's relatively rural, but pretty close to Amherst.
It's about 20 minutes from Amherst. It's about just over. So I think it's 90 miles from Boston. So it's
okay.
So it's a
very
doable.
accessible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doable drive. I live 72 miles from here, and I, during construction, I was coming out three days a week, 4 days a week sometimes. You get used to it, but it's. I think. I guess my dream for this space would be to attract people to come to live in this area that are artists, to have like a little artist community here. And I think, the fact that it's rural, I mean, how home values are low, not values, but prices.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully once this kicks off and if people come and stay, it will be known and people will, flock here for that. Just nice people that want to do beautiful things and, grow this town. The town was sort of, before we came in, there's one store in town, down at the bottom of the hill, a little general store, but I think there's an auto body shop maybe
Yeah.
in town too, but, you know, not a lot of tax revenue, and we're hoping to sort of very consciously build this into, you know, an artist sort of town, hangout
Yeah.
community where people feel supported and they have a great place to paint and they can live with their families and thrive here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous place. The drive was beautiful. You know, I'm with my daughter, and of course, she's of the generation that's pretty buried in their phones wherever they go. And I
Right.
keep telling her to look up and look around.
Yeah.
She's so obsessed with New York right now that I'll point out like a beautiful field or something. She's like, I just want to go back to New York. But for me, it's heaven. You know, it's so beautiful. We're thinking about, we live in a kind of a smaller town in Utah, and so that's comfortable for me. I like visiting the larger cities, but in terms of, especially in New England, there's just so much rich history with American art movements in towns like this, with small artist communities, you know, New Hampshire and the initial the first American movement in art being the Hudson River School. There's, you know, that obviously at the time was a small town, but you get just a few artists together, and it becomes a movement pretty quickly.
Right, exactly.
And so I imagine the school is probably something that you kind of envision helping to build that to be a significant factor in being a reason why people would move out here and settle down, and at least for a few years to get their training.
Yeah. So the vision of the academy is definitely, it's the idea of bringing the collection alive. You know, so the unique thing about this museum is that it's all mostly, there's a couple historical pieces, but mostly living artists who are showing in galleries working today. And so to be able to interact and have them make art in the space and have that kind of be a big part of, so the idea is to bring the artist in the collection to come teach at the academy.
Yeah.
So to kind of on a very small scale do like what I experienced in New York, where you get time, intimate time with the master artist.
Yeah.
What, you know, more beautiful location than here. We have, you know, protected land literally right behind the building where you can go for walks and explore and come back, paint, go down, look at your favorite artists, come back up, paint, and have it be kind of, you know, if we can work up to it, have it be like 2-week classes where, you know, throughout the year you have, you know, 12 instructors or something coming for, you know, a certain period each month.
Yeah. I had thought about that. I presented it to kind of a collector, mostly a San Francisco hedge fund guy. At the time, there were several chateaus in France within like 40 minutes to an hour of Paris, and they, you know, were between $3-5 million, and which in the grand scheme of things is not that much money, but to me it might have been $1 billion, you know. But I kind of had that idea. You could have an area of the chateau that was a living master's museum. Students could do interior paintings in the beautiful space. You have landscape right there, and who's not going to want to come teach at a beautiful place like that? And you've done it here. I mean, you've created like a little chateau, a gorgeous space here, and so it's super exciting, especially just because it's rare to get access to see the originals and be able to get so close and study them and spend so much time with them. I can only imagine that having a major impact, especially because there's so many different stylistic choices within these artists. The art that you have here is a very sophisticated, varied in terms of touch and individuality in the paintings, which is something that I think, in terms of a lot of the other academic institutions, we're seeing the opposite of that. You know, a lot of, you know, the particular method perhaps is so absolute that you almost handicap some of the students with the loss of some individuality, and that can have lingering effects long after graduation, which is something I've been obviously concerned about for a long time, because I run a school and have seen that as a distinct handicap. But the artists in this collection are just so individually unique, and that is, I think, a really special opportunity for students to be surrounded by and influenced by.
One thing that's been so exciting to see and to witness is, you know, we've started having small groups come out, and there's so much of the art that's available to buy now is for these artists that are painting today. You buy off a website, or you never see it in person,
Yeah.
and especially since COVID. But to watch the artists go from piece to piece and like, oh, I saw this. This looks so
Right.
different in person, and wow, this is really fantastic. This is so much better than than
Yeah.
it looked online. That's been really thrilling to see. And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the ongoing frustration of artists is there's a benefit, there's an absolute benefit to being able to share your work more widely through social media platforms or the internet with your website, but there's a massive drawback in that we make these works of art to be experienced in person. And so the majority of the people that are going to see our art, it's going to be online, unfortunately.
right.
Yeah.
So again, such a unique opportunity to have such a brilliant collection, so accessible.
One of the things that we talked about was that with this movement in particular, with so many galleries and so many artists, all the paintings are going pretty much directly into private collections,
Right.
and the public has no access to them.
Yeah,
So, there's this incredible art happening, and you can't go see it.
yeah,
Where do you just sign up to go see a Colleen Barry?
right. Yeah,
So-
and a lot of them don't necessarily have regular shows,
Yeah.
and so you get the rare opportunity to see any of them in person.
Yeah.
I remember, recently Alex Venezia had a show, just, fantastic work, and
We were there.
and I was just desperate to like go see it in person. I want to see the brushwork. I want to see how he layers the paint. I want to see the colors and life and and again, it's just so unique. It's a miracle that you caught the vision of that and were so willing to not only share your work but go through the expense to make it accessible to people through the renovation of this space. And what is the long-term vision for do you have like a plan for the collection or
Well, I
an
think,
idea of where it would go?
This is sort of round one.
Yeah.
And there's other pieces that are sort of waiting in the wings, and we also have some ideas about possibly hosting some competitions here, and so things will be changing.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to keep it fresh so that
Sure.
people come back, but we also want to be a resource for the town so that when people come into New Salem, and it's typically it's busy time is fall, but the people will want to come back and see it, and also the townspeople,
Yeah.
give them a place to go, and we have a huge patio out back that we're hoping to do some things in the summertime on for the town, and also for the school. So
Yeah, so more community events and
exactly, reach out to the schools, have field trips, and maybe some, just
yeah,
generate some interest and the love of what's going on here.
right. And have you set maybe a number or goal number for student population? Is there?
Well, no, I mean, you can fit probably comfortably in this room, 18 artists, I would say, depending on, if they're working from the model or if they're doing other projects. So it's not going to be a year-long situation. It's different. It's not but one of the things that I think is important, and you hit on it a little bit so what happens with schools is you churn out like this, little me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's this replica of the master artist. And
Yeah.
that's not what we want to do here. What we want to do is, after you study, or if you're young and you're super talented and you want to experience a different kind of education, it's being in interaction with different kinds of art and different kinds of artists, and really kind of searching and trying to figure out what your style is, because
Yeah.
that's what the galleries want in the end.
Sure.
They don't want students of whoever. They want someone who can say something.
Yeah.
And so you have to foster that early on, I think, and try to like get them to see that, look, everyone has a certain skill set that they can, advance, but if you don't have anything to say, then it's all kind of meaningless.
Right.
So that's what we're hoping to. So it's not, it's an academy, but it's not like, this is our kind of template.
Right. Yeah, I've tried to straddle the fence. There, I feel like there's a conversation or I guess the argument that I hear from the contemporary world is about representation is it's already been done. I'm sure you've heard it before. It's already been done. It's passé. It's not new. Who cares? And I think for a while there, early on when the schools started back up, say around 1995, 2000, the newness of that high level of skill was exciting. Mm-hmm. And I think, to a degree they needed to focus on that largely because it was so absent. But by around 2010 it started to get a little bit boring because the focus solely being on skill development wasn't creating a natural bridge to an individual message or art making or picture making, narrative. It was just, the message was almost just, look how well I can render. And at this point, 2022, it's been done, and increasingly by a larger and larger body of graduating students. And so the conversation I've been having for the last 9 years with my students is there has to be a different motivator. The motivator should be what you want to do once you get through this door. That this, where you want to go is art making, is picture making, composition, narrative, whatever. And this is the door you might go through to get there a little bit more efficiently, but this isn't where you want to be. You shouldn't, a good student is the one that will skip class because they're so just insane about making their own work. Whereas today I think the consideration within the halls of most of the academies is the good students are the ones that show up on time, help set up the model, render the form the best, whatever. And I've been trying to adjust that narrative, at least among my students, that the motivator needs to be something else. We even, stopped class one day a week 9 years ago, so they had one extra day to focus on their own work. Because I don't think I don't think it's a natural bridge that people build between when you develop your skills with just these particular disciplines. It doesn't mean like, if I'm just doing academic nudes and that's the only way I know how to turn form, that doesn't necessarily translate into painting a waterfall or painting a figure outdoors or whatever. And so if you're not presenting yourself with these larger problems, you're just not building a bridge to find the solutions to them. And I think that, unless that changes, I feel like the academies are sort of making the contemporary argument for them, which is, we really don't have anything to say. And I think that it's sort of a self-handicapping element in the education. So I'm all on board. I'm all the way on board with that idea. And then on top of that, for me, I want to keep learning. I want to get better. And my favorite thing to do is just work shoulder to shoulder with some of my favorite artists and see the decisions that they make. And so I think that exposure to various artists and there's certainly a commonality in their skill set, but it's the decision making that makes them unique. And exposure to that gives a wider range of opportunity to students to decide, what fits me best. So again, super exciting to see somebody, two people with such a grand vision actually bringing it to fruition.
I have a question regarding the, when artists that are trained in these academies to draw a certain figure, or, they have the look of the academy. When do they typically branch off? Is it once they graduate, or are they encouraged to do that within the school and develop their own style, or is it more follow this form?
In my experience, different academies have, of course, different dogmas. In my experience, the Florence Academy, where I went, was maybe a little bit less absolute in the step one, step two. This is exactly what it's supposed to look like in the end, and so I feel like maybe I had a little bit more freedom to develop my own touch. I think that there's an inevitability that the student work will look similar, just because it's if everyone's painting the model and it looks like the model, it's going to look pretty similar. I think other academies have more absolute methods that where the expected outcome or the things that they hear praised, the most look a certain way, and so there's a certain emulation of that that creeps into the system, and it becomes a little bit heavier dogma.
Is there a difference between the European schools and the American schools?
Well, I think there's a difference between all of them just based on, the top-down influence. For instance, I think Barcelona, for me, is, I'm throwing my opinions at you, so this isn't gospel, but it's just kind of my through my lens. I would say Barcelona, to me, is one of the better schools, particularly because Jordi Diaz-Alama is so bold and creative, and with what he's doing, just doing amazingly epic paintings. I think they embrace a little bit more broad means of making pictures. I don't know that they espouse, I don't know this for sure, but I don't know that they espouse just that only from life idea. I think they're more open to other means of putting compositions together. Again, I may be totally wrong on that, but it certainly feels like they're trying to develop a little bit more individuality in the students. But I haven't seen any schools that put a focus on picture making or the postgraduate application of skills. I haven't seen an environment. I haven't been in an environment where they are heavily put an importance on why they're developing skills. And so that's where, to me, the greatest deficiency is in just conversationally, you're not making it important. So I think it's a dual issue. One is systemic and one is individual. The systemic issue is that the system itself needs to encourage and talk about the importance and impress upon the students the need to focus on that. And then the individual student needs to find it in themselves to make that their top priority. But I think more students are likely to make that their top priority if the system encourages it more. But mine is just a theory because I never had the number of students to see a larger impact on that idea taking shape. You know, when you have a school as big as the Florence Academy or Barcelona or Grand Central, I think that's where you could really test that theory out. But I know there's quotes from the 19th century where they say, you know, for every 1,000 graduates, there's one that has something to say. So I don't think it's just a problem that exists today. I think it's been around forever.
It's just, that's how it is with everything. You get, you know, whether it's in business or whether it's in different art forms like writing or music or anything, it's just, not everyone is going to be good at it. Not everyone's going to have something to say. And eventually, you know, the unique ones, the talented ones kind of stand out.
Yeah.
You know, they may not be that talented, they may just be more unique.
Yeah.
And business savvy and able to talk about their work, and they get further ahead just because if you're an artist, and you're listening, if this is geared towards students, you know, don't expect the world to come knocking at your door.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to get out and you have to talk to people, and you have to do some kind of self-promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, there has to be a certain tenacity and discipline in order to, I mean, you're doing something that you mean to share.
Yeah.
And if people are unaware of it, it
Yeah.
doesn't get shared quite as widely. And we were talking earlier about, you know, the need, when I'm talking to my students, just trying to help them understand that you need to be very clear about what your interests are, and then set your priorities realistically. If you want to put more focus on skill development and a constant effort to improve, there's other things that will suffer, right? I mean, you only have so much time, and maybe people that market more, you know, in terms of monetary success, may leapfrog you with seemingly less skill. But if you can make that decision deliberately, then I think there's some joy in that. Yeah, I would just hope that a school system, from their place of responsibility, would see the need and the urgency to help students have that concentration on developing their own voice and how to do that. And I mean, there really isn't any business classes or
No.
self-promoting classes or
No.
discussion about picture making, or, you know, how to frame something, or budgeting, or any of that exists at the moment. But again, to go back to what you're doing, when you do bring in professional artists, I think that inevitably becomes a part of the conversation, because there's elements to you know, different ways that artists have found their success, and everybody kind of has their own winding path towards it. That goes far beyond just sitting at the easel and making really nice paintings. You know, Greg Mortensen, I was able to talk to him a few days ago, and he talked about when he graduated, he just kind of looked at like all the people who come before him and how did they do it here, what competitions were they entering, and he just kind of put it together and created his own version of that, which is really important. So do you have an opening date? Have you guys thought about, both for the museum and the school? Looks like it's something, an ongoing conversation.
We were supposed to open. Actually, it was last September. We were hoping to have our first grand opening party, which was dedicated to the town, because this has been a big project and it's been noisy and disruptive, and so we had a big open house planned with catered food and, you know, booze and entertainment and the whole thing. But unfortunately, we had to postpone that because of we have a septic issue here. We're required by the town to install a separate septic system because it's a commercial building. So we are working through that. It's a process. And I think we've been delayed now 3 times, 4 times. I think, it's frustrating because, you look around and the paintings are on the walls and the plaques are up, and we're ready to open the doors, but we have a little problem with no flushing toilets. So
Yeah.
that we're working through that, and hopefully, we're at this point. Winter is such a quiet time of year out here that we're looking early spring is
Okay.
at this point is our target date. So
Yeah.
we're thinking, early March.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be for both?
For both.
The museum and the school. Okay. And so it sounds like the school is something where people could move here, take advantage of upcoming events and workshops. But it sounds like it is geared more towards 1 week, 2 week workshops that you would have more of a transient student body for. Is that kind of?
Well, we've floated the idea of having the studio be open because this is sort of a destination. It's not so people artists made the decision to come out here for the day or really wanted to see it, that they would have access to the studio to paint up here if they wanted and make a day or 2 out of it. So
yeah, I love that idea. So yeah, to expand just a little bit on that. So membership to the museum is very accessible. I think it's set at like $50 a
Yeah.
year.
A year, yeah.
And so we kind of came up with the idea that if there's, let's say at the beginning, if we're operating and the, it's like 1 instructor a month and they come a week. So that would be, if we don't have full-time students, that would be a format, yes, where anyone could come. But then for the studio to sit empty for 3 weeks would be it would be really sad because
Yeah.
it's so beautiful.
Right, right.
And so me being an artist and knowing how it is, we thought, well, it's a beautiful space. Why not just, if you're a member, you can pay $75 a day or something like that, and just paint from 8 to 5. And if you have an idea that's going to take you 3 days, then come, spend the weekend and make a work of art that,
Yeah.
what other opportunity,
Yeah.
can you work in a studio like this?
Right.
So I was kind of
Can they
envisioning-
rent you?
so I
to,
get
to work
critiques.
to work with you? Can they,
It's not part of the
do you
deal.
come with the space?
Depends on who the student is. No, I mean, so we also want to be really influential in artist formation if they're interested. So that would be a separate situation where if someone's willing to come up and potentially rent and be full-time, that's different.
Yeah.
Then they get access to all the the instructors who would be coming. They get access to the dinner parties, all that stuff. That's fine. That would be like a different kind of, but the academy in its essence, very formally, would be just, yes, opening the door to the public, similar to other places, beautiful destination location for a workshop. And then the rest of the stuff is kind of, it has to be separate for like a smaller group.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so in a way, there'll be plenty of time for sort of an artist residency, not necessarily to live here, but have that sort of residency studio space for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be around, surrounded by all of these masterworks at
Right.
the same time,
Yeah.
which is incredibly unique. And that's coming pretty quick. I mean, time flies pretty quick.
It does.
So early spring is coming up.
Although spring in New Salem
It's a little later.
is a little late.
Yeah. So I'm thinking mid-April. You're thinking late May, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Nothing's set in stone. So
Yeah.
Sure.
everything is, we want to operate right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But just with the winter,
Yeah.
we can't. So, we'll be open as soon as we possibly can.
Sure. Have you started to put a list together of potential teachers, or have anything on the later schedule when you know we'll be open, that you, or is there a website that people can go to? I know there's an Instagram. It's New Salem. Is it just New Salem Museum?
New Salem Museum.
New Salem
Yep.
Museum. You've got an Instagram,
Mhm.
right? And people, I'm sure you'll post some things. And is there a website for the
Mhm.
both
New
the
Salem.
museum and the?
Yep, newsalemmuseum.com.
Okay, and all of the academy stuff would be on there, including like dates
Yeah.
of workshops and events.
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as we have any planned, it'll be on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like a teaser list of hopefuls that you want to share?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, so for like the master instructors, Daniel Sprick, Nick Alm, that kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, they're in the collection.
Sure.
And younger generation artists that I've talked to who are just so incredible.
Yeah.
Are like Rachel Lee.
Yeah.
Rachel Personette. So you get these different. So Daniel Sprick, we're kind of in this middle, generation. But so like the age difference between Jacob Collins and myself, who was my teacher, and myself and Alex Venecia is
Right,
the
right.
exact same kind of. Like,
Sure.
So it's like about, I don't know what it is. Maybe Alex is. It's like 14 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just the generational,
Mhm.
and you'll have kind of a wide variety of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about the museum or the space or announcements or anything?
Gosh, I don't know. I think, one thing that we are looking at going forward is the possibility of housing some, we've had a lot of neighbors volunteer to, there are Airbnbs and VRBOs in this neighborhood. There's 2 hotels close by. We're looking for something a little more permanent, and I think that's,
Yeah.
we're already looking towards the next phase and to make it, that much easier for people
Sure.
to stay close to the museum and park and walk over. And, we designed the building so that the museum itself, the first 2 floors here, could be locked out and the studio could remain open. We have a back staircase that exits right to the back deck. So, students can come and go, and we wouldn't have to keep the whole museum open.
Sure.
But, if it turned into a late night and, it could be, people could be up here and
Yeah.
working, and they wouldn't be subject to the time, closing time of the, downstairs.
Right.
So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to get here and stay and be comfortable and enjoy it. Enjoy
Yeah.
everything that's out here. It's. I mean, we're sitting here in January and there's snow and it's bitter cold, but this is really, it's a very special and beautiful area, especially once the ground thaws and, the leaves come out. It's
Yeah.
just, it's very peaceful and serene and just bucolic.
It's gorgeous.
It's
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Abbott Anderson Thayer's work?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Mount Monadnock is right kind of that way. And as you look around, it's just like you can see his landscapes. He did a whole series of that mountain. And it's just gorgeous around here. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
We actually, there are painters that come out here. There's a little artist group at Amherst of plein air painters.
Yeah.
And I ran into them a couple of times this past summer, just in the area. There's an apple orchard down the street, and there's a woman named Carol who's got a cider barn down there, and so she sells hard cider, and people come and bring a picnic and
Yeah.
paint, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of the Hudson River Fellowship. Did you do that?
I went up. I wasn't officially a student. But
Oh,
I went
okay.
up and painted.
I think they got in 2007, 2008 is when I did it, and they just had 3 homes that were donated for people to stay in, and then they could just, there was a central area in the barn that we all met, and maybe every 2 to 3 days, and lined the walls with all the sketches that we'd done, and it was magical.
That's great.
For me, it was kind of it's one of those moments in my life that I feel was a launching point, a real revelation. We were all just kind of coming out of school. Colleen Berry and Will St. John were there, and Jordan Sokol and Amaya, and I think they met there. And Travis Schlott and Ted Minoff, Jacob Collins, Shane Wolf. It was such a. Now I look back and everybody's these monsters of painting, and to think that I was there among them and able to witness that and participate. It was special, and it was just, it was simple. It was just a cool location with a great history and a lot of beauty, and a lot of natural beauty, and then I don't know how it was put together, but whoever donated a couple of homes.
Was it like donated the time?
I think they just gave us 3-4 weeks, and then you shared rooms, and I was trying to put something like that together. And actually, we have something like that coming up in Zions. One of my students, her parents have 2 homes right on the river, looking into Zions, and so in October, we have a week where we're going to invite some artists out and have a kind of a little retreat, landscape painting retreat.
I love that idea.
Which is, it's such a great idea.
Field trip to the Cape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we want them to come to New Salem.
I know. I know. A day trip.
I won't let you take them.
Yeah, but having the space and having the paintings to see, I could see being its own draw. To bring people out and significant people that can do really amazing things, working shoulder to shoulder is. It's my favorite way to learn anymore is just to set up next to somebody and paint the same thing and just see how they think. You can really read their thoughts through their process, and that's really exciting. So. I'm appreciative of it just as an outsider looking in. Again, I've gone through these ideas so often, had these conversations so much, and seen so many of them lead to dead ends. So the miracle of this that you guys have pulled off, I hope everybody takes the chance to come out and see it and experience it for themselves.
We do too.
Yeah. So thank you both for all the time and energy you're putting into it. I think you're creating something incredibly magical.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I had to.
In January.
Yeah, of course. I hope to come back. Maybe fall would be amazing. I can only imagine.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll end it there.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Good.
All right.
Thanks,
Cool.
Rob.
Thanks.